The shot came from nowhere. One moment, the training dummy at 2,400 meters stood untouched, the wind readings declaring any attempt impossible. The next moment, its head snapped back with a hole dead center. Every SEAL on the firing line froze. Senior Chief Damon Huxley lowered his binoculars, his face draining of color. That distance, in these conditions, with wind gusting at 14 knots from the southwest, should not have been possible. He had just failed the same shot 3 times. Who fired? Huxley barked into the radio. His voice cracked on the second word, and he hated himself for it. Sound off. Every position. The responses came back in sequence. Negative from position 1. Nothing from position 2. All the way down the line, 8 shooters, 8 denials. The Army Rangers on the adjacent range had stopped their own exercise to stare. Before we continue, drop a comment and let us know what state you're watching from. Maybe you have witnessed a moment when someone revealed skills that shocked everyone around them. Huxley swept his binoculars across the rocky terrain of San Clemente Island. 68 miles off the coast of San Diego, this remote outpost served as the Navy's premier special operations training ground. He knew every shooting position, every hide site, every angle of approach. Someone had just made a shot that should have been impossible, and they had done it from somewhere he could not identify. Lieutenant Commander Reginald Osei approached from the observation tower, his boots crunching on the gravel. The officer everyone called Brick moved with the deliberate calm of a man who had seen combat and learned that panic solved nothing. He stopped beside Huxley and studied the distant target through his own optics. That grouping is perfect, Osei said quietly. Dead center. No deviation. I can see that, sir. Huxley did not bother hiding his irritation. What I cannot see is who took the shot. The wind shifted again, sending a cloud of dust across the range. Huxley had trained snipers for 6 years at this facility. He held the base record for longest confirmed hit. His reputation was built on being the best shooter to ever come through these courses, and someone had just made him look like an amateur in front of 24 witnesses. Check the candidates. Huxley ordered one of his instructors. Every rifle, every round count. Someone is lying. The investigation began immediately. Rifles were examined. Ammunition was counted. Brass casings were collected and cataloged. The math refused to cooperate. Every weapon accounted for its shots. Every shooter had been observed by spotters. The phantom round had come from somewhere outside the official exercise. Master Sergeant Clint Novak wandered over from the Army's side, his weathered face showing more curiosity than concern. The Ranger instructor had 20 years of experience and had seen plenty of strange things in combat zones around the world. This was a new one. Your boys playing tricks? Novak asked, or did one of mine sleepwalk over here? This is not a joke, Huxley snapped. Novak raised his hands in mock surrender. Easy, Senior Chief. Just asking. That was one hell of a shot, whoever made it. 2,400 meters in this wind. I have maybe seen 3 people in my career who could pull that off. Huxley turned away without responding. 3 people. He had trained with legends, worked alongside the best shooters in naval special warfare, and he could not name 3 people capable of what he had just witnessed. The shot had not just been accurate. It had been surgically precise, placed exactly where a lethal hit would land on a human target. Whoever had fired understood killing at a level that went beyond marksmanship into something closer to artistry. The radio crackled with a message from the airfield. Huxley listened, and his expression shifted from frustration to confusion. We have incoming, he announced to Osei. Transport helicopter. Command is sending someone. Osei frowned. We did not request anyone. Evaluator, apparently. Here to assess the program. Now, right after that shot. The coincidence was not lost on Huxley. He watched the horizon where the helicopter would appear, his instincts screaming that the 2 events were connected. Command did not send evaluators without warning. They did not dispatch observers to remote island facilities on the same morning that impossible shots appeared from nowhere, unless they already knew something. The helicopter appeared as a dark speck against the gray sky, growing larger as it approached. Huxley assembled his instructors and candidates, determined to present a unified front against whatever bureaucratic interference was about to descend on his range. He had built this program into the finest sniper training in the Navy. He would not let some pencil pusher from headquarters undermine his authority. The aircraft touched down in a swirl of dust and rotor wash. The side door slid open, and a single figure stepped onto the tarmac. Average height, lean build, silver threading through cropped dark hair. She wore standard Navy working uniform with none of the tactical gear Huxley expected from a combat evaluator. Then he saw her rank insignia, and his prepared speech died in his throat. Master Chief Petty Officer, the highest enlisted rank in the United States Navy. Whoever this woman was, she had spent decades earning those anchors. And she moved across the tarmac with the quiet confidence of someone who had stopped needing to prove anything a very long time ago. She carried no clipboard, no evaluation forms, no obvious equipment. Just a single duffel bag slung over one shoulder. Her eyes swept the assembled personnel, pausing briefly on Huxley before continuing to the distant targets still standing at the far end of the range. Something about that glance made Huxley's stomach tighten. He had spent his career reading people, identifying threats, assessing capabilities at a glance. This woman looked at the world the way a predator looked at terrain, calculating angles, measuring distances, noting positions. She looked at his range the way he looked at a battlefield. Master Chief Petty Officer Theodora Vance had learned to read hostility the way most people read street signs. The assembled SEALs radiated it like heat from sun-baked concrete. She had expected nothing less. Senior Chief Huxley stepped forward, positioning himself as the welcoming committee of one. His handshake was too firm, his smile too sharp. "Master Chief," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "We were not expecting company. Command must have forgotten to send a memo." "Command tends to do that," Teddy replied. Her voice carried without effort, calm and unhurried. "I am here to evaluate your long-range program, observe training methods, assess candidate progress, review equipment protocols." Huxley's smile tightened. "With respect, Master Chief, this is a combat sniper program. Our evaluators typically have trigger time, actual field experience." Teddy let the implication hang in the air for a moment before responding. "I will try not to get in the way." She saw the flicker of satisfaction in Huxley's eyes. He thought he had established dominance, put the paper pusher in her place. Let him think that. She had spent 2 decades letting men underestimate her, and it had never once worked out in their favor. Lieutenant Commander Osei intervened with professional courtesy, offering to show her to her quarters. Teddy accepted, allowing herself to be led away from the firing line while Huxley's voice boomed behind her, ordering his candidates back to their positions. The transient barracks sat at the far edge of the facility, a clear message about her status. Teddy dropped her duffel on the thin mattress and surveyed the sparse room. A window overlooked the rocky terrain leading toward Observation Point 7, the cliff position that provided the only viable angle for the shot she had taken that morning. She had arrived on the island 2 days before the official helicopter, slipped in on a supply run, hiked to the remote observation point under cover of darkness, and waited. When the training exercise began and Huxley started his demonstration of superiority, she had watched through her scope, watched him miss 3 times at 2,400 meters while the wind laughed at his calculations. Then she had shown him what real shooting looked like. The question now was whether anyone would figure it out. She had collected her brass, sanitized her position, and extracted before dawn. The official arrival had been timed to create exactly the confusion currently consuming the base. Let them chase ghosts while she conducted her real evaluation. A commotion outside drew her to the window. 3 male candidates had cornered a young woman near the equipment shed. Teddy recognized the dynamic immediately. Hazing disguised as training, cruelty wrapped in tradition. She watched the young woman hold her ground. Petty Officer Second Class, based on her insignia. One of the first female candidates in the new integration program. The men were testing her, pushing her, waiting for her to break or to fight back, so they could claim she was too emotional for the work. Teddy left her quarters and approached the group from an angle that put the sun behind her. The men did not notice until her shadow fell across them. "Petty officer," Teddy said to the young woman, "I need directions to the armory." The three men stepped back, recognizing her rank insignia. The young woman blinked in surprise before recovering. "Of course, Master Chief. I can show you." They walked together in silence until they were out of earshot. The young woman's jaw was tight, her hands trembling slightly with suppressed anger. "What is your name?" Teddy asked. "Tanaka, Master Chief. Petty Officer Second Class Yuki Tanaka. Those three give you trouble often." Tanaka hesitated. "Nothing I cannot handle, Master Chief." Teddy stopped walking and turned to face her. "That was not what I asked." The younger woman met her eyes. "Every day since I arrived, Senior Chief Huxley says it builds character. Says if I cannot handle verbal pressure, I will fold under fire." Teddy nodded slowly. She had heard that justification 100 times. Sometimes it was even true. More often, it was an excuse for men to indulge their worst instincts while claiming they were doing their targets a favor. "Let me tell you something about pressure," Teddy said. "Real pressure does not announce itself. It does not posture or puff up its chest. Real pressure is silent. It is the crosshairs settling on a target who does not know you exist. It is the half second between deciding to fire and watching the result." Tanaka listened without interrupting. "Those men are not pressure. They are noise, and noise can be tuned out. What matters is whether you can do the job when the noise stops and the silence starts. Can you?" "Yes, Master Chief." "Then prove it to yourself, not to them. Their opinion is irrelevant." Teddy resumed walking, and after a moment, Tanaka fell in a step beside her. The armory was not far, and Teddy didn't need to inspect the equipment logs. Every rifle on this base had been fired that morning except hers, and she wanted to ensure the records reflected that convenient truth. Inside the armory, she reviewed the logs while Tanaka waited. The numbers confirmed what she already knew. Every round was accounted for. The mystery shot remained a mystery. "Master Chief," Tanaka said quietly, "can I ask you something?" Teddy looked up from the paperwork. "That shot this morning, 2,400 meters in shifting wind. Do you know who can make that?" Teddy held the young woman's gaze for a long moment. "There are people capable of extraordinary things, Petty Officer Tanaka. Most of them never get the chance to show it. Some of them prefer it that way." Before Tanaka could respond, the armory door banged open. Huxley filled the doorway, his expression hovering between annoyance and suspicion. "Master Chief, the range is active. If you want to observe, now is the time." Teddy set down the equipment log. "After you, Senior Chief." She followed him out into the harsh afternoon light, leaving Tanaka with more questions than answers. That was fine. Questions kept people thinking. And right now, Teddy needed everyone on this base thinking about anything except a 42-year-old Master Chief who had supposedly spent her career behind a desk. The wind had shifted again. Teddy noted the new direction automatically, calculating how it would affect trajectories at various distances. Old habits never died. They just waited for the right moment to matter again. Tonight, under cover of darkness, she would return to observation point 7. She had left something behind on purpose. A single brass casing, positioned where only someone who knew exactly where to look would find it. Bait for whoever was smart enough to suspect the truth. The investigation consumed the base like wildfire. Huxley had transformed the mystery shot into a personal crusade, interviewing every candidate, examining every weapon, demanding answers that no one could provide. Teddy observed from the edges, watching him spiral. She had seen this pattern before in men whose identities were built on being the best. When something threatened that foundation, they either adapted or they crumbled. Huxley did not strike her as the adapting type. This was not luck, Huxley announced to his assembled instructors in the operations center. Teddy stood near the back, officially present as an evaluator, unofficially cataloging every mistake he made. Someone on this island made that shot deliberately. Someone with training we do not know about. Senior Chief, one of the junior instructors ventured, is it possible someone from the Ranger detachment wandered over during the exercise? Huxley's glare could have melted steel. Novak's people were all accounted for. I checked personally. This was one of ours. Or someone who is not officially here, another instructor suggested. The room went quiet. Teddy felt the weight of several glances in her direction. She kept her expression neutral, mildly curious. Exactly what a desk-bound evaluator would show when confronted with tactical speculation. Huxley seized on the implication. Master Chief Vance, you arrived shortly after the incident. Convenient timing. I arrived when my transport was scheduled, Teddy replied evenly. You are welcome to check with command. I intend to. The confrontation hung in the air until Lieutenant Commander Osei cleared his throat. Let's focus on facts, gentlemen. And Master Chief, we have a shot that came from an unidentified position. What do we know about the trajectory? Huxley pulled up a diagram on the operations center screen. Based on the entry angle, the shot came from somewhere in the eastern hills. Probably one of the elevated positions near the cliff face. Teddy studied the diagram, noting where his analysis went wrong. The angle of entry actually suggested a higher position than he had calculated. Observation point 7. But his error worked in her favor, so she said nothing. Those positions are inaccessible during training hours, an instructor pointed out. We have them blocked off for safety. Exactly, Huxley said, which means someone bypassed our security protocols. Someone who knew the terrain well enough to navigate it undetected. Again, the glances toward Teddy. She met them with the same mild expression. Let them suspect. Suspicion without evidence was just noise. I want every inch of those eastern hills searched, Huxley ordered. If there is a brass casing, a footprint, anything, I want it found and cataloged. Teddy felt a small pulse of anticipation. The casing she had left behind would be found. That was the point. But what they would make of it was another matter entirely. The meeting dispersed, and Teddy found herself walking beside Master Sergeant Novak. The Army instructor had remained quiet throughout the discussion, his weathered face revealing nothing. Quite a show, Novak said once they were outside. Your senior chief seems personally offended by the whole thing. He takes pride in his program. Novak snorted. He takes pride in being the best shooter on the island. That shot proved he is not. Everything else is just noise to cover the wounded ego. Teddy glanced at him. You sound like you have seen this before. I have been in the military for 20 years, Master Chief. I have seen every variety of ego the human species can produce. Huxley is textbook. Give him a few days, and he will convince himself the shot was faked somehow. Digital manipulation or a rigged target. Anything except admitting someone out there is better than him. They walked in silence for a moment. The wind carried the distant crack of rifle fire from the active range, where training continued despite the investigation. Can I ask you something? Novak said. Off the record. You can ask. That shot. 2,400 meters, 14-knot crosswind, shifting conditions. I have seen maybe 3 people in my career who could make it. 2 of them are dead. The third retired to a cabin in Montana and does not talk to anyone anymore. Teddy waited. Whoever took that shot was not showing off. The placement was too precise. Center mass headshot. Perfect killing angle. That was someone demonstrating capability. Sending a message. What kind of message? Novak stopped walking and turned to face her. The kind that says I can reach out and touch anyone on this island whenever I want. The kind that should make people like Huxley very nervous. He held her gaze for a long moment, and Teddy saw something in his eyes. Not suspicion exactly. Recognition, like he was fitting pieces together in his mind and did not quite believe the picture they formed. Interesting theory, Teddy said. You should share it with Senior Chief Huxley. Novak laughed, a dry sound without humor, and watched his head explode. No thank you. I will keep my theories to myself. He paused. For now. He walked away toward the ranger barracks, leaving Teddy alone with the wind and the distant rhythm of gunfire. Novak was smarter than she had anticipated. That could be useful, or it could be dangerous. She would need to watch him carefully. That evening, she made her way to observation point 7 under cover of darkness. The climb was technical, requiring skills that no desk evaluator would possess. She moved through the rocks like a shadow, muscles remembering routes her mind had mapped 2 nights before. The brass casing was gone. Teddy crouched in the position where she had left it, studying the ground. Someone had been here. Recently. The dust patterns showed fresh disturbance, boot prints that did not match her own. She followed the tracks to the edge of the cliff and looked down at the distant lights of the base. Someone knew. Someone had found her evidence and taken it. The question was whether they understood what it meant. A sound reached her ears. Footsteps on rock. Coming closer. Teddy melted into the shadows and waited. The footsteps stopped 10 meters from her position. Teddy remained motionless, her breathing slow and controlled. 24 years of training had taught her that stillness was its own form of invisibility. "I know you were there, Master Chief." The voice belonged to Chief Warrant Officer Ezra Blackwood. Teddy allowed herself a slow exhale and stepped out of the shadows. Blackwood stood on the rocky outcrop with his hands visible at his sides, the universal gesture of non-threat. He was older than when she had last seen him, gray spreading through his close-cropped hair, but his eyes held the same sharp intelligence that had made him one of the finest intelligence officers she had ever worked with. "Ezra," Teddy said, "it has been a long time. 12 years. Kandahar. You saved my life and then disappeared into a classified file, so deep I thought you had died. Reports of my death were exaggerated." Blackwood stepped closer, his boots crunching on loose stone. "When I heard command was sending an evaluator to San Clemente, I did not think much of it. Then I saw the name and nearly choked on my coffee. Theodora Vance. The ghost herself." Teddy studied her old friend. "What are you doing here, Ezra? I could ask you the same thing, but I already know the answer." He reached into his pocket and produced a brass casing. "You left this behind. Sloppy for someone with your skills. Which means you wanted it found. I wanted to see who was paying attention. And now you know." Blackwood turned the casing over in his fingers. 2,400 meters. I heard the instructors talking about it, like it was a magic trick. They have no idea what you are capable of. They're not supposed to. The wind picked up, carrying the salt smell of the ocean far below. Blackwood pocketed the casing and crossed his arms. "Why are you really here, Teddy? And do not give me the official line about program evaluation. I read your file before it was sealed. You do not evaluate programs. UN threats." Teddy weighed her options. Blackwood was one of perhaps 5 people alive who knew her real history. Lying to him would be pointless and potentially counterproductive. "There is a leak," she said. "Someone in Naval Special Warfare has been selling training protocols to foreign intelligence services. Sniper techniques, counter-surveillance methods, operational patterns. The kind of information that gets people killed." Blackwood's expression hardened. "And you think the leak is here?" "I think the leak has connections here. San Clemente trains the best shooters in the Navy. If someone wanted to compromise our sniper programs, this is where they would start. So the shot this morning was a test. I wanted to see how the command structure responded to an unexplained event. Who panicked? Who stayed calm? Who started making phone calls they should not be making?" Blackwood was quiet for a long moment. "Huxley has been acting strange since you arrived. Defensive. Paranoid. Huxley is acting like a man whose ego has been bruised. That does not make him a traitor. It makes him predictable. Then who are you looking at?" Teddy shook her head. "I am still gathering information. But someone on this island accessed my evaluation notes this afternoon. Downloaded my trajectory analysis, my wind calculations, the coordinates of this position." Blackwood stiffened. "That is not good." "No, it is not. Whoever took that data now has everything they need to prove I was the shooter. Which means I have approximately 48 hours before my cover is blown or the evidence disappears entirely. What do you need from me? Eyes and ears. You have clearance I do not. Access to communications logs, personnel files, anything that might show unusual contact patterns." Blackwood nodded slowly. "I can do that. But Teddy, if this goes sideways, command will not protect you. Your official record shows 24 years of administrative work. No one will believe you are capable of what I know you can do." Teddy smiled, a rare expression that did not reach her eyes. "That is rather the point." They descended from observation point 7 separately, Blackwood taking the longer route to avoid being seen together. Teddy returned to her quarters and found her door slightly ajar. She paused, every sense alert. The base was supposed to be secure. Her room had been locked. Pushing the door open slowly, she scanned the small space. Nothing appeared disturbed. Her duffel sat where she had left it. The bed was untouched, but someone had been here. She could feel the residue of another presence like static electricity on her skin. Her evaluation notes were spread across the small desk. She had left them in a specific order, a habit from years of counter-surveillance. 3 pages had been moved. The trajectory analysis, the wind calculations, the observation point coordinates. Someone had photographed them and put them back, assuming she would not notice. Teddy gathered the pages and sat on the edge of the bed. The game had changed. Whoever was watching her had made their first move. Now she needed to decide whether to retreat or escalate. Her fingers found the worn photograph she kept in her pocket. A younger version of herself in desert camouflage, standing beside soldiers whose faces were blacked out in the official version. The original showed them clearly. Men and women she had served with, bled with, buried. Mandatory retirement papers sat in her duffel, waiting for her signature. In 6 months, her career would end regardless of what happened here. She could walk away, file a report, let someone else handle the investigation. But someone on this island was selling secrets that would get people killed. People like the ones in that photograph. People like Yuki Tanaka, young and determined and unaware of the dangers lurking in her own chain of command. Teddy put the photograph away and began planning her next move. The hunt was just beginning. The next morning brought chaos that Teddy had not anticipated. She arrived at the operations center to find Huxley standing before a crowd of instructors and candidates, his voice carrying the righteous certainty of a man who believed he had solved everything. "We have identified the source of yesterday's unauthorized discharge," Huxley announced. Petty Officer Second Class Tanaka failed to properly secure her weapon during the training evolution. Ballistics analysis suggests her rifle discharged accidentally at the moment of the impact. Teddy felt cold rage settle into her bones. Tanaka stood at attention near the front of the assembly, her face pale but composed. The young woman knew she had not fired the shot. Everyone who understood ballistics knew a negligent discharge could not produce that kind of accuracy. But Huxley had found a scapegoat, and the political convenience of blaming the female candidate was too perfect to resist. "The investigation is ongoing," Huxley continued, "but Petty Officer Tanaka has been relieved of training duties pending a formal hearing. Charges may include negligent discharge, reckless endangerment, and conduct unbecoming." Lieutenant Commander Osei stood to the side, his expression troubled but silent. The other candidates avoided looking at Tanaka. No one wanted to be associated with her sudden fall from grace. Teddy waited until the assembly dispersed before approaching Osei. "A word, Commander." Osei led her to a quiet corner outside the operations center. Before she could speak, he held up a hand. "I know what you're going to say, Master Chief. The ballistics do not support Huxley's conclusion. An accidental discharge at that range would show deviation, tumbling, impact, scatter. That shot was precision engineered. Then why are you allowing this?" Osei's jaw tightened. "Because I have been ordered to. Command wants this resolved quickly and quietly. A negligent discharge by an inexperienced candidate is an acceptable narrative. An unknown shooter with impossible skills operating undetected on a secure military installation is not." Teddy understood the logic. She hated it, but she understood it. The military protected its image above almost everything else. Admitting that security had been breached, that someone had infiltrated their most advanced training facility, would raise questions no one wanted to answer. "Tanaka's career will be destroyed," Teddy said. "Probably." Osei met her eyes. "Unless someone provides an alternative explanation. Someone with evidence that points in a different direction." The implication was clear. Osei suspected more than he was saying. He was giving her an opening, a chance to redirect the investigation without exposing herself completely. "I will see what I can find," Teddy said. She found Tanaka in the transient barracks, packing her belongings into a duffel bag. The young woman's hands were steady, but her eyes showed the devastation she was fighting to conceal. "I did not do it," Tanaka said without looking up. "My rifle was secured. My round count was correct. I never fired outside the designated exercise. I know. Tanaka finally looked at her. Then why is this happening? Because someone needs to take the blame, and you are convenient. Teddy sat on the edge of the opposite bunk. A female candidate in a controversial integration program. If you fail, it supports the narrative that women do not belong here. Huxley gets his answer. Command gets their quiet resolution, and everyone moves on except you. So that is it. My career ends because of politics. Your career ends if you let it. Teddy leaned forward. I'm going to ask you a question, and I need you to answer honestly. That morning, during the exercise, did you see anything unusual? Anyone out of position? Any movement in the eastern hills? Tanaka's brow furrowed. I was focused on my lane, but there was a moment when I thought I saw something. A reflection, maybe, up near the cliff face. Observation point 7. I do not know the designation. It was high up, overlooking the range. I thought it was just sunlight on rock, so I did not report it. Teddy nodded. That reflection could be your defense. If you saw something near an elevated position, it suggests the shot came from elsewhere. It creates reasonable doubt, but I cannot prove it. No, but I might be able to. Tanaka studied her with new intensity. Who are you really, Master Chief? You do not move like an administrator. You do not think like one either. I am someone who does not like watching good people get destroyed to protect comfortable lives. Teddy left the barracks and made her way toward the armory. The rifle examination had been completed, but the evidence would still be logged. If she could find inconsistencies in Huxley's analysis, she could build a case for Tanaka's defense. Blackwood intercepted her halfway there. His expression was grim. We have a problem, he said quietly. I pulled the communications logs you asked about. There is unusual activity, but it is not coming from who you expected. Who? The signals are encrypted, routed through external servers. Professional-grade operational security. Whoever is sending information off this island knows exactly how to avoid detection. Can you trace the source? I traced it to a terminal in the operations center. The same terminal where the training schedules and sniper protocols are stored. Blackwood paused. The access logs show the terminal was used last night, during the window when your notes were photographed. Teddy processed this information. Who has access to that terminal? For people, Lieutenant Commander Osei, Senior Chief Huxley, the base communications officer. And as of yesterday, the frame was elegant in its simplicity. Whoever was selling secrets had positioned Teddy perfectly. A mysterious evaluator with a classified background, arriving just as an impossible shot disrupted the base. If the leak was discovered, she would make the perfect scapegoat. Just like Tanaka, the trap had been set long before she arrived. Now she was standing in its jaws, watching them slowly close. Teddy spent the next 6 hours doing what she did best. Watching, listening, becoming invisible while the base moved around her. She observed Huxley running drills with forced intensity, overcompensating for the disruption to his program. She watched Osei make 3 separate phone calls from the secure communications room, each time emerging with deeper lines on his face. She noted the communications officer, a lieutenant named Spears, leaving the operations center at irregular intervals with no apparent purpose. But it was Master Sergeant Novak who drew her attention most. The Army instructor had positioned himself at the edge of every significant interaction, close enough to hear, but distant enough to seem uninvolved. He was gathering information, just like her. Late in the afternoon, Novak found her at the observation deck overlooking the long range. Candidates were running qualification drills below, their shots echoing across the rocky terrain. You have been busy, Novak said, leaning against the railing beside her. Asking questions, examining evidence, making people nervous. I am an evaluator. Questions are part of the job. Novak smiled without warmth. We both know you are not just an evaluator, Master Chief. The question is what you actually are. Teddy turned to face him directly. What do you think I am? I think you are someone who has spent a very long time learning how to disappear. He pulled a folded paper from his pocket and handed it to her. I made some calls to old friends, people with access to files that do not officially exist. Teddy unfolded the paper. It was a partial service record, heavily redacted but unmistakably hers. dates and locations that aligned with operations she had conducted. Kandahar, Mogadishu, a province in Syria that had been erased from official maps after what happened there. Where did you get this? Doesn't matter. What matters is what it tells me. He pointed to a section near the bottom. 17 confirmed kills at distances exceeding 2,000 meters. Operational deployment to 6 combat zones. Cross-training with units that do not officially exist. Teddy refolded the paper and slipped it into her pocket. You have been thorough. I have been curious. There is a difference. Novak's expression shifted to something more serious. Whoever took that shot 3 days ago was not just skilled. They were surgical, precise in a way that only comes from years of real-world application. The kind of precision that gets classified and buried. What are you suggesting? I am suggesting that the woman standing next to me has killed more people than most combat units, and she is pretending to be a paper pusher while a young sailor gets railroaded for something she did not do. The accusation hung between them. Teddy calculated her options. Novak had enough information to expose her, but he had come to her privately instead of going to Huxley or Command. That suggested an agenda beyond simple revelation. What do you want? She asked. I want to know why you are really here. Because it is not to evaluate a sniper program you could run blindfolded. And it is not to make impossible shots that terrorize fragile egos. There is something else going on, and I think it is bigger than wounded pride and gender politics. Teddy made a decision. The same instinct that had kept her alive through 2 decades of operations told her Novak could be trusted. More importantly, she needed an ally outside the Navy chain of command. There is a leak, she said quietly. Someone on this island is selling classified training protocols to foreign intelligence. Sniper techniques, operational patterns, information that compromises every mission our people run. Novak's expression hardened. And you think it is someone in the SEAL program? I think it is someone with access to the operations center. Someone who has been here long enough to establish trust and sophisticated enough to avoid detection. Huxley, maybe, or Osei, or Spears, or someone I have not identified yet. Teddy glanced around to ensure they were not being observed. The shot was a test. I wanted to see how the command structure responded to an unexpected variable. What I did not anticipate was how quickly they would find a scapegoat. Tanaka, she is innocent. We both know that. Novak nodded slowly. So what is your play? Expose yourself to save her and blow your investigation. Or let her take the fall while you hunt the real traitor. I am working on a third option. Before Novak could respond, movement below caught their attention. Huxley was striding across the range toward the observation deck, his face set in hard lines. Behind him, 2 military police officers followed at a professional distance. Master Chief Vance, Huxley called up to her. His voice carried satisfaction, poorly disguised as duty. You need to come with us. Command has questions about your activities since arriving on this island. Teddy felt the trap tightening. Someone had accelerated the timeline. Whoever was behind the leak had decided she was getting too close. She turned to Novak. Find Blackwood. Tell him the communications logs need to be secured before they disappear. Novak gave a slight nod and moved toward the stairs on the opposite side of the deck. Teddy descended to meet Huxley and his escorts. The senior chief's eyes gleamed with vindication. Seems your classified record raised some red flags, he said. Funny how an administrator has more redacted operations than most special operators. Teddy said nothing. She let them lead her toward the operations center, her mind already working through scenarios. Whoever had made this move had revealed something important. They were scared, and scared people made mistakes. She just needed to survive long enough to exploit them. The interrogation room was a converted storage space with concrete walls and a single overhead light. Teddy had been in worse. She had conducted interrogations in mud huts, bombed-out buildings, and once in the back of a moving vehicle crossing a border that did not officially exist. A storage room on a Navy base was practically luxurious. Lieutenant Commander Osei sat across from her, a tablet displaying her service record between them. Huxley stood near the door, arms crossed, radiating satisfaction. Master Chief Vance, Osei began, Your official record shows 24 years of administrative service, training coordination, program evaluation, personnel management. He scrolled through the tablet. But your unofficial record tells a different story. My unofficial record is classified for a reason, Commander. Osei leaned forward. 17 confirmed kills. Deployment to combat zones that were never publicly acknowledged. Cross-training with units whose existence the Department of Defense denies. He set down the tablet. Who are you really? Teddy met his eyes without flinching. I'm exactly who my orders say I am. An evaluator sent to assess this program. Huxley stepped forward. You expect us to believe that someone with your background is here to fill out assessment forms. You made that shot. I know it. Everyone with half a brain knows it. If I made that shot, Senior Chief, where's my rifle? Where is my ammunition? Where is any physical evidence connecting me to the incident? Huxley's jaw tightened. You had 2 days before your official arrival. Plenty of time to cache equipment somewhere on the island. Then find it. Teddy kept her voice level. Search every inch of this island. If you find a rifle registered to me or ammunition matching that shot, I will confess to whatever you want. The challenge hung in the air. Huxley glanced at Osei, who remained expressionless. The problem, Master Chief, Osei said slowly, is that your presence here coincides with some troubling irregularities. Communications anomalies. Unauthorized terminal access. Information that appears to be leaving this island through channels we cannot trace. Teddy felt the frame settling around her like a straitjacket. Whoever was behind this had done their homework. They had created a perfect narrative. Mysterious operative with classified background arrives. Makes impossible shot to establish dominance. Then begins extracting sensitive information under cover of her evaluation. You think I'm the leak. I think someone is, Osei replied. And right now, you're the most logical suspect. A knock at the door interrupted them. One of the MPs entered and whispered something to Huxley. The senior chief's expression shifted from satisfaction to confusion to something approaching alarm. What is it? Osei demanded. Huxley cleared his throat. Chief Warrant Officer Blackwood is requesting immediate access. He says he has information relevant to this investigation. He paused, and he has brought Naval Criminal Investigative Service credentials. Teddy kept her face neutral, but internally she felt a spark of hope. Blackwood had made his move. The door opened and Blackwood entered, followed by 2 men in civilian clothes with the unmistakable bearing of federal agents. His expression was professionally blank, but Teddy caught the slight nod he directed at her. Lieutenant Commander, Blackwood said, I am afraid there has been a misunderstanding. Master Chief Vance is not your leak. She is here investigating it. Osei stood slowly. Explain. Blackwood produced a sealed envelope and handed it to Osei. These are her actual orders, signed by the Deputy Chief of Naval Operations. Master Chief Vance was inserted into this facility to identify the source of an ongoing intelligence breach that has compromised naval special warfare operations for the past 18 months. Osei opened the envelope and scanned its contents. His face went pale. Huxley grabbed the papers from Osei's hands and read them himself. His expression cycled through disbelief, anger, and finally something that looked almost like fear. This says she has operational authority over this entire investigation, Huxley said. It says she can detain and interrogate anyone on this island. That is correct, Blackwood confirmed. Which means this interrogation is over, and Master Chief Vance is now in charge of finding your real traitor. Teddy rose from her chair. The shift in power dynamics was almost physical. Huxley stepped back involuntarily. Even Osei seemed to shrink slightly. Gentlemen, Teddy said, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but you have been chasing the wrong target. While you were focused on me, the actual leak has had 3 days to cover their tracks and continue transmitting classified information. Do you know who it is? Osei asked. I have narrowed it to 4 suspects. Teddy let her gaze move between the men in the room. 2 of them are standing in front of me right now. The silence was absolute. Huxley's face reddened. Osei's went even paler. I am not accusing either of you directly, Teddy continued. But until this investigation is complete, No one on this island is above suspicion. She turned to Blackwood. What about the communications logs? Secured. And I found something interesting. The encrypted transmissions stopped the moment you were brought in for questioning. Whoever is behind this knew exactly when to go dark, which means they have access to real-time information about base activities. Teddy nodded slowly. That narrows our timeline considerably. She walked past Huxley without acknowledging him and paused at the door. Senior Chief, one more thing. Petty Officer Tanaka's hearing is suspended indefinitely. She is innocent, and I will not allow her career to be destroyed to protect someone's ego or cover someone's crimes. Huxley said nothing, but the hatred in his eyes told Teddy everything she needed to know about their relationship going forward. She had made an enemy, but she had also taken control. Now the real hunt could begin. The night before everything changed, Teddy found herself alone on the long range. The base had gone quiet after her authority was revealed. Candidates whispered when she passed. Instructors avoided eye contact. Even Huxley had retreated to his quarters, nursing his wounded pride and whatever else festered behind those resentful eyes. She had come to the range to think. The targets stood silent in the darkness, pale shapes at measured distances. 500 meters, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, 2,400. The same distances that had started this entire chain of events. Footsteps approached from behind. Teddy did not turn. She had recognized the gate before the person came within 50 meters. Could not sleep either, Novak said, stopping beside her. Sleep is a luxury I gave up a long time ago. Novak was quiet for a moment, staring at the distant targets. The ranger instructor had proven himself a valuable ally over the past day, helping Blackwood secure evidence and quietly gathering information from his own people. I talked to my contacts at Bragg. He said, finally. Asked about your Syria operation, the one that does not exist. And what did they tell you? They told me that a 4-person team went into a province controlled by 3 different hostile factions. Their mission was to eliminate a high-value target who had been selling American intelligence to anyone with cash. The team was compromised within 6 hours. Ambushed. 3 operators killed in the initial contact. Teddy said nothing. The memories were there, always there, waiting at the edges of her consciousness like wolves circling a campfire. The 4th team member spent 11 days behind enemy lines, Novak continued. Moving at night, hiding during the day, picking off pursuers one by one until extraction could be arranged. By the time she reached the border, she had eliminated the original target plus 14 additional hostiles. All confirmed kills, all at distances exceeding 800 meters. That operation is classified. It is. But the people who survived because of what happened there remember. Novak turned to face her. You're not just a sniper, Master Chief. You're a ghost story. The kind of legend people tell in hushed voices because saying it too loud might make it real. Teddy finally looked at him. Legends do not get old, Sergeant. They do not watch their hands start to shake or feel their eyes strain at distances that used to be effortless. They do not fill out retirement paperwork and wonder what they will become when a uniform comes off. Is that why you took the shot? One last reminder of what you used to be. The question cut deeper than Novak probably intended. Teddy considered her answer carefully. I took the shot because I needed to see the truth of this place. How people react when their assumptions are challenged. Whether the foundation here is solid or rotten. She paused. I found rot. The leak. Someone has been selling pieces of our sniper program for at least 18 months. Training protocols, equipment specifications, tactical methodologies. The kind of information that lets enemies anticipate how our people will operate. She turned back toward the targets. 6 operators have died in the past year on missions that should have been routine. Ambushes that were too precise. Counter-sniper operations that knew exactly where to look. Someone is feeding them our playbook. And you think that someone is here. I know they are. The communications patterns, the access logs, the timing of the breaches. Everything points to San Clemente. Teddy's voice hardened. Tomorrow I'm going to force them into the open. How? By giving them something they cannot resist. A target too valuable to ignore. Novak studied her face in the dim light. You're going to use yourself as bait. I'm going to challenge Huxley to a shooting competition. Public. High profile. Every eye on the island watching. She smiled grimly. If I am exposed as the shooter from 3 days ago, my credibility as an investigator is destroyed. The leak will want that to happen. They will make a move to ensure it. That is a dangerous game. All my games are dangerous. The safe ones do not accomplish anything. They stood in silence as the wind shifted across the range. Somewhere in the darkness, a night bird called and received no answer. What if Huxley is the leak? Novak asked. You will be handing him exactly what he wants. If Huxley is the leak, he will overplay his hand. His ego will not let him do otherwise. And if he is not, his reaction will help me identify who is. Novak shook his head slowly. You have thought this through. I have had 24 years to learn how predators think. The key is understanding what they want and making them believe they can get it. Then you watch where they reach. The base communication system crackled to life, announcing the midnight watch change. Teddy checked her watch. 6 hours until dawn. 6 hours until she set her plan in motion. There is something else you should know, Novak said. Tanaka came to see me this evening. She wants to help. Says she owes you for saving her career. She does not owe me anything. That is not how she sees it. Novak paused. She also mentioned something interesting. Before all this started, she noticed Lieutenant Spears making calls at odd hours, using a personal device instead of base communications. She thought it was strange, but did not report it because he outranked her. Spears, the communications officer. Teddy filed the information away. He had access to everything. Schedules, protocols, transmission logs. If anyone could mask unauthorized communications, it would be him. Keep Tanaka close, Teddy said, but keep her safe. If this goes wrong tomorrow, she needs to be clear of the fallout. And if it goes right, then the person who has been selling our people's lives will finally face justice. Teddy walked back toward the barracks, leaving Novak alone with the silent targets. Tomorrow would bring answers. One way or another, the hunt would end. She just had to survive long enough to see it through. Dawn broke gray and cold over San Clemente Island. By the time the sun crested the eastern hills, every sniper, instructor, and candidate on the base had gathered at the long range. Word had spread quickly. The mysterious Master Chief with a classified record had challenged Senior Chief Huxley to a shooting competition. The woman who might have made the impossible shot versus the man who held every marksmanship record on the island. Seals against whatever Theodora Vance actually was. Teddy arrived at the firing line carrying a rifle that drew immediate attention. It was older than some of the candidates, a modified M40 that had been with her through 3 wars and countless operations. The stock was worn smooth from years of use. The scope had been replaced twice, but the action was original, still cycling rounds with the precision of a Swiss watch. Huxley was already in position, his own rifle gleaming with careful maintenance. He had brought his best equipment, determined to humiliate her publicly. The satisfaction on his face suggested he had already written the ending to this story. Master Chief, Huxley called out, I hope you're not expecting handicaps. This is a straight competition. Best shooter wins. I would not have it any other way, Senior Chief. Lieutenant Commander Osei stepped forward to officiate. The rules were simple. 5 distances, 5 shots each. Closest to center mass wins each round. Best of 5 takes the match. Teddy scanned the crowd as Osei explained the format. Blackwood stood near the observation tower, watching the perimeter rather than the competition. Novak had positioned himself with a clear view of Lieutenant Spears, who lingered at the edge of the gathering with his personal phone visible in his hand. Tanaka was there too, her face tight with tension. The trap was set. Now Teddy needed to spring it. First distance, Osei announced. 500 meters. Huxley went first. His shot was clean, striking 2 centimeters left of center. A murmur of approval rippled through the crowd. Teddy settled behind her rifle. The familiar weight pressed against her shoulder. Her breathing slowed. The world narrowed to the sight picture, the gentle squeeze, the controlled exhale. The shot broke clean. Dead center. The crowd went silent. Huxley's expression flickered but held. 1,000 meters came next. Huxley adjusted for the increased distance and fired. His shot landed true, just slightly high of center. Excellent shooting by any standard. Teddy matched her breathing to the rhythm of the wind. She felt the old ache in her shoulder, the slight tremor in her hands that had not been there 5 years ago. But muscle memory ran deeper than age. The rifle was an extension of her body, and her body remembered what perfection felt like. Her shot struck center mass. Perfect placement. Whispers spread through the observers. This was not supposed to happen. The paper pusher was not supposed to match the best shooter on the island shot for shot. 1,500 meters. Huxley's composure began to crack. His third shot drifted slightly right, caught by a wind gust he had failed to anticipate. Still excellent. Still not enough. Teddy read the wind the way she had read it for 24 years. She felt its patterns, its rhythms, the subtle shifts that separated good shooters from great ones. Her shot found its mark without deviation. 3 rounds. 3 perfect placements. Huxley had not won a single distance. 2,000 meters. The crowd had grown completely silent. Even the instructors who had dismissed her were watching with something approaching awe. Huxley took his time. He adjusted his scope, checked his calculations twice, waited for what he judged to be the perfect moment. His shot was the best he had fired all morning. Half a centimeter from absolute center. Teddy felt the weight of every eye on the island. This was the moment. Not just to win, but to send a message that could not be ignored or explained away. She fired. The spotter called it before the impact was visible. Center. Dead center. Huxley stood abruptly, his face flushed with anger and disbelief. That is not possible. No one shoots like that. No one. Teddy rose from her position, keeping her voice calm. One distance remains, Senior Chief, unless you would prefer to concede. The challenge hung in the air. Huxley's hands trembled at his sides. His entire identity was built on being the best, and a woman he had dismissed as a bureaucrat was systematically dismantling that identity in front of everyone he had ever commanded. 2,400 meters, Osei announced. Final distance. The same distance as the mystery shot. The same conditions that Huxley had failed 3 times before this all began. Huxley took his position. The wind had shifted, gusting unpredictably from the southwest. The same pattern that had defeated him days ago. He made his adjustments, steadied his breathing, and fired. The spotter took a long moment before responding. Mississippi. 2 meters left. A collective exhale from the crowd. Huxley had choked under pressure. The shot that had haunted him for days remained beyond his reach. Teddy settled behind her rifle for the final time. She found the target in her scope, felt the wind against her cheek, calculated the adjustments that existed more in instinct than mathematics. This was what she was, what she had always been. Not an administrator, not an evaluator, a predator at the top of a very specialized food chain. She exhaled slowly and squeezed the trigger. The bullet crossed 2,400 meters of turbulent air and found its target with surgical precision. Center mass. Perfect killing shot. The range erupted. Candidates who had watched in skeptical silence were shouting. Instructors who had dismissed her stood frozen in disbelief. Even the Rangers were applauding. But Teddy was not watching the celebration. She was watching Lieutenant Spears, whose face had gone pale as he furiously typed something into his phone. And she was watching Huxley, whose expression had shifted from humiliation to something far more dangerous. The trap had worked. Now, she needed to see who walked into it. The celebration died the moment Blackwood's voice cut through the noise. We have him. Teddy moved through the crowd toward the observation tower where Blackwood stood with 2 NCIS agents. Novak was already there, his hand resting on Lieutenant Spears' shoulder. The communications officer looked like a man watching his life collapse in real time. His phone, Blackwood said, handing Teddy the device. He was transmitting the entire competition. Live feed to an encrypted server we have been tracking for 6 months. Teddy scrolled through the transmission log. Timestamps, coordinates, detailed observations about her shooting technique, her equipment, her adjustments for wind and distance. Everything a foreign intelligence service would need to counter American sniper operations. Lieutenant Spears, Teddy said calmly. You have been selling our people to the enemy. Spears' face contorted. You do not understand. They have my family. My sister lives in Manila. They said they would kill her if I stopped cooperating. The excuse was familiar. Teddy had heard variations of it a dozen times. Sometimes it was even true, but the result was always the same. Good people died because someone decided their personal stakes outweighed their duty. How long? She asked. 2 years. Spears' voice cracked. It started small. Training schedules. Equipment manifests. And they wanted more. Sniper protocols. Operational patterns. I tried to stop, but they showed me photographs of my sister. Surveillance shots. They knew where she worked, where she lived, who she talked to. 6 operators are dead because of you. Spears flinched as if she had struck him. I know. Every name. I see them when I close my eyes. The NCIS agent stepped forward to take custody. Teddy watched them secure his hands, read his rights, begin the process that would end with a military tribunal and a cell in Leavenworth. But something nagged at her. Spears had access and opportunity, but his profile did not match the sophistication of the operation. He was a technician, not a strategist. Someone had recruited him, handled him, directed his activities. Someone who understood exactly what information would be most valuable and how to extract it without detection. Who recruited you? Teddy asked before the agents could lead him away. Spears hesitated. A man approached me in San Diego. Said he was a contractor doing security assessments. He knew things about my sister's situation before I told him. Knew about her debts, her visa problems. He had leverage before we ever spoke. Description. Average height. Fit. Military bearing. He spoke like someone who had served. Spears paused, his eyes focusing on something in the middle distance. He had a tattoo, tribal design, on his forearm. I saw it once when his sleeve rode up. The words hit Teddy like a physical blow. She turned slowly, scanning the crowd that had gathered to watch Spears' arrest. Huxley was gone. Novak, she said sharply. Where's Huxley? The ranger instructor spun, his eyes sweeping the range. He was here a minute ago, right at the edge of the crowd. Teddy's mind raced through the implications. Huxley had access to everything. Training protocols, sniper methodologies, candidate assessments. He had been on this island for 3 years, long enough to establish the pipeline that had been feeding intelligence to hostile services. And he had the ego to believe he deserved more than the Navy was giving him. The resentment to justify betrayal. The skills to avoid detection. Lock down the island, Teddy ordered. No boats, no helicopters, no communications off base without my authorization. Blackwood was already on his radio, issuing commands. The NCIS agents secured Spears in a vehicle and coordinated with military police to establish a perimeter. He cannot get far, Novak said. San Clemente is 68 miles from the mainland. There is no way off without a vessel or aircraft. Teddy shook her head. Huxley knows this island better than anyone. He trained here for 3 years. If there is a way off that we do not know about, he will find it. A shout came from near the equipment shed. One of the candidates had discovered something. Teddy sprinted toward the commotion, Novak close behind. Tanaka stood over an open storage locker, her face pale. Inside, hidden beneath a tarp, was a cache of equipment. A satellite phone, a laptop with external hard drives, bundles of currency in multiple denominations, and a wetsuit with diving gear. He has extraction plan, Tanaka said. Probably a pickup point somewhere along the coast. A boat waiting at predetermined coordinates. Teddy examined the laptop. The files were encrypted, but the folder structure told its own story. Years of intelligence. Names of operators. Mission parameters. After-action reports. Everything the enemy would need to systematically dismantle American special operations capabilities. This is bigger than we thought, Blackwood said quietly. This is not just sniper protocols. This is the entire naval special warfare architecture. Teddy closed the laptop and handed it to the NCIS agents. Secure this. I need a helicopter and a thermal imaging team. What are you going to do? Novak asked. I'm going to find Huxley before he reaches his extraction point. Teddy checked her rifle, still slung across her back from the competition. And I'm going to end this. She moved toward the helicopter pad, her mind already calculating search patterns and probable escape routes. Huxley had a head start, but he was carrying gear and moving through terrain she had memorized 3 days ago. The hunter had become the hunted, and Teddy had never lost a target she was determined to find. The helicopter swept low over the western coastline, thermal imaging painting the rocky terrain in shades of blue and orange. Teddy sat in the open door, her rifle balanced across her knees, eyes scanning for any heat signature that did not belong. Huxley had a 20-minute head start. In that time, a man with his training could cover significant ground. But he was also carrying diving equipment, which would slow him down. And he was heading toward water, which meant his options were limited to the accessible portions of the coastline. Contact, the thermal operator called out. Single figure, 800 meters northwest. Moving toward the cove. Teddy saw it, a bright orange shape against the cool blue rocks, descending toward a narrow inlet where the waves crashed against volcanic stone. The cove was sheltered from observation, invisible from the main base. A perfect extraction point. Put me down on that ridge, she ordered, then pull back and maintain overwatch. The helicopter banked and descended toward a rocky outcrop 300 meters from Huxley's position. Teddy dropped to the ground before the skids fully touched, moving immediately into cover as the aircraft lifted away. She advanced through the rocks with practiced silence. 24 years of stalking targets had taught her how to move without disturbing stone or scraping against surfaces. The wind covered what little sound she made, carrying it away from her quarry. Huxley had stopped at the edge of the water. He was assembling his diving gear, preparing for the swim to whatever vessel waited beyond the cove. His movements were rushed, lacking the precision she had observed during training exercises. Fear did that to people. Even trained operators made mistakes when they knew death was close. Teddy found a stable position behind a boulder and raised her rifle. The distance was 200 meters, an easy shot under normal circumstances. But she did not want to kill Huxley. She wanted him alive, wanted him to face the families of the operators he had betrayed, wanted him to spend the rest of his life in a cell knowing exactly what he had done. "Senior Chief Huxley," she called out. Her voice echoed off the rocks. "Step away from the water." Huxley froze. Then, slowly, he turned to face her direction. He could not see her position, but he knew approximately where she was. His hand moved toward the sidearm holstered at his hip. "Do not," Teddy warned. "You know what I am capable of. You saw it on the range." Huxley laughed. It was a bitter sound, hollow and desperate. "I saw a parlor trick, shooting at paper targets. You have no idea what I am capable of. 6 dead operators say otherwise." The laughter died. Huxley's face twisted into something ugly. Those men were weak. They got comfortable, predictable. The information I provided simply exposed what was already true. American special operations have become soft. You sold them out for money. I sold them out for respect. Huxley's voice rose. 20 years I gave to this country. 20 years of doing the impossible, and what did I get? A training assignment. Babysitting recruits while politicians decided who lived and who died. Do you know what it feels like to be forgotten? Teddy held her position, keeping him talking. Every second he spent justifying himself was a second he was not reaching for his weapon or diving into the water. "I know exactly what it feels like," she said. "I spent my entire career in the shadows. No recognition, no medals, no acknowledgement that I even existed. But I never betrayed the people who trusted me. Because you are a fool." Huxley spat the words. "Loyalty is a leash they use to control us." The moment I realized that, I became free. Movement caught Teddy's peripheral vision. A boat had appeared at the mouth of the cove, running without lights. Huxley's extraction. If he reached the water, he would disappear into whatever network had been protecting him for years. "Last chance," Teddy said. "Surrender now, and you live to see trial." Huxley's hand closed around his pistol. He drew and fired in one motion, the shot going wide, but forcing Teddy to adjust her position. She returned fire without hesitation. The bullet caught Huxley in the right shoulder, spinning him around and dropping him to the rocks. His pistol clattered away into the darkness. Teddy advanced, rifle trained on his prone form. Huxley clutched his wounded shoulder, blood seeping between his fingers. The boat at the cove mouth had stopped, its occupants clearly uncertain whether to proceed. A second helicopter appeared over the ridge, searchlights blazing. Coast Guard markings. Blackwood had called in reinforcements. The extraction vessel reversed course and fled into the darkness, abandoning Huxley to his fate. "It is over," Teddy said, standing over him. Huxley looked up at her, pain and hatred warring in his eyes. "You think this changes anything? The information is already out there. The networks are already built. You stopped one man. You did not stop the tide." "Maybe not." Teddy lowered her rifle as Novak and a team of MPs descended into the cove. "But I stopped you. And tomorrow, I will stop whoever comes next." They hauled Huxley to his feet and secured his hands. As they led him toward the waiting helicopter, he turned back to look at her one final time. "Who are you?" he asked. The question he had been asking since she arrived, now stripped of arrogance. Genuine bewilderment in his voice. Teddy watched them load him into the aircraft. The rotors kicked up sand and salt spray, stinging her eyes. "I am the one who took the shot," she said quietly. The words were lost in the noise of the engines. But she had not said them for him. She had said them for herself. 1 week later, Teddy stood on the long range as the sun rose over San Clemente Island. The base had transformed in the days since Huxley's arrest. The shadow that had hung over the training program had lifted, replaced by something that felt almost like hope. Candidates walked taller. Instructors spoke with renewed purpose. The rot had been cut out, and what remained was healing. Lieutenant Commander Osei approached from the operations center, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. He offered one to Teddy, and they stood together watching the morning light paint the distant targets gold. NCIS finished their preliminary assessment. Osei said, "Huxley's network was extensive. 14 contacts across 3 foreign intelligence services. He had been building it since before he arrived here. How much damage? Significant, but recoverable." Osei sipped his coffee. "The protocols he sold are being revised. The operators he compromised are being reassigned. It will take time, but we will rebuild." Teddy nodded. Rebuilding was what the military did. It absorbed losses, adapted to threats, and continued forward. The machine endured even when individual parts failed. "There's something else," Osei said. He reached into his pocket and produced an envelope. "This came from the Deputy Chief of Naval Operations this morning." Teddy took the envelope, but did not open it. She already knew what it contained. Her retirement papers, finalized and awaiting signature. The end of 24 years reduced to a few pages of administrative formality. "Before you open that," Osei continued, "you should know that Command has made a request. They want you to delay your retirement. Establish a new training program for female sniper candidates. Use what happened here as a foundation for something better." Teddy turned the envelope over in her hands. A week ago, she had been ready to disappear into whatever anonymous life awaited her after the uniform came off. Now she was being offered a chance to shape what came next. "Why me?" "Because you proved something on that range that no policy memo could ever accomplish." Osei gestured toward the firing line where candidates were beginning to assemble for morning drills. "Those young women watched you outshoot the best marksmen on this island. They watched you hunt down a traitor and bring him to justice. You showed them what is possible. I showed them one person's capabilities. That does not mean the system will change. Systems change when people change them." Osei finished his coffee. "You have spent your entire career in the shadows, Master Chief. Maybe it is time to step into the light." He walked away, leaving Teddy alone with her thoughts and the unopened envelope. Footsteps on gravel announced another arrival. Teddy turned to find Tanaka approaching, dressed in training gear and carrying a rifle case. "Master Chief." The young woman stood at attention. "I wanted to thank you for everything." "You do not need to thank me, petty officer. You earned your place here." Tanaka relaxed slightly. "I heard about the new program, the one they want you to lead." She paused. "I would like to be part of it, if you'll have me." Teddy studied the young woman's face. She saw determination there, and talent, and something else. The same hunger that had driven Teddy herself 3 decades ago. The need to prove that excellence had no gender, that capability was its own credential. It will not be easy, Teddy said. The standards will be higher than anything you have experienced. The pressure will be constant. There will be people who want you to fail every single day. I know, and you still want this. Tanaka met her eyes without wavering. I want to be the best. Not the best female sniper. The best sniper. Period. Teddy felt something shift inside her chest. A door opening that she had assumed was permanently closed. Purpose finding its way back into a life she had thought was ending. Report to the range at 0500 tomorrow, she said. Bring your rifle and everything you think you know about shooting. I'm going to teach you how much you still have to learn. Tanaka's face broke into a smile. Yes, Master Chief. The young woman jogged toward the barracks, her energy radiating possibility. Teddy watched her go, then looked down at the envelope in her hands. She tore it in half without opening it. Novak found her an hour later, standing at the 2,400-meter line with her rifle shouldered. He watched her fire 3 rounds in succession, each one finding center mass on the distant target. I heard you were staying, he said. Seems I'm not done yet. The army is going to be jealous. You could have come to brag, train our people instead. Your people do not need me. Teddy lowered her rifle. These candidates do. Novak was quiet for a moment. What you did here mattered. Not just catching Huxley, but showing everyone what is possible when you stop underestimating people. Teddy thought about the young women who would come through her program in the months and years ahead. The obstacles they would face, the doubters they would encounter, the moments when everything would seem impossible. She thought about herself at their age, fighting for every inch of respect, proving her worth in blood and silence and sacrifice. They would not have to fight alone. Not anymore. If you enjoyed this story, drop a comment and tell us your favorite moment. Maybe you have witnessed someone reveal abilities that changed how everyone saw them. Or maybe you have been that person yourself, waiting for the chance to show what you are truly capable of. Teddy raised her rifle one final time. The wind had shifted, gusting from the southwest at 14 knots. The same conditions that had started everything. She settled her breathing, found her target, and fired. The shot crossed 2,400 meters and struck dead center. Some things she thought never change, but some things finally do.